Another thing that stops us from being courageous is cultural expectations, right? They often dictate how we should behave, how we should feel, and how we should express ourselves, right? There are these unwritten rules that, hey, man, things are this way, and we don't go against things that are this way, right? There's a quote, right? There's a quote that I like, and it says, "It's better to walk alone than with a crowd going in the wrong direction," right? See, sometimes there are cultural expectations that will stop us from being courageous when we feel like something may not be working for us because it feels like it is working for everyone else, right? And in those times, in those moments, we won't have the courage to speak up and say, hey, you know what? It actually doesn't work for me. Like the way we do that and the way we navigate that, like, hey, no hard feelings, but that's not concurrent. And I think what we don't realize in that also is when we are brave and speaking up in things, it may not be in that moment, but it may give somebody else courage to sit and say, you know what, I actually that's not for me either. You know, that's actually not for me either. And here's the thing when it comes to cultural expectations or just like social norms, like it's not the responsibility of the other person to change what they're doing or how they're doing. I think as you interact with things, I think it is your job to realize what works for you and what doesn't work for you, right? So I think we see this in a number of different ways. We see this in when people are graduating and what school they go to, right? If all of their friends go to this one school, I remember when I was graduating, it was just like a lot of my friends were all going to this specific college and everybody was applying to this college because that's just what everyone was doing. Or even so, different career paths, right? I remember there was just common language. There was just a few common career paths where it was just like once one person identified it or a group of people identified it, we all of a sudden flocked and thought that, okay, now this has to be our trajectory. You can see this in the things that we buy. You can see this in the clothes that we wear. You can see that in the cars that we drive. There are societal norms that say, hey, this is this. And sometimes those external pressures can stifle our authentic voice, right? It can discourage open communication because it feels like, man, things are already set this way. Man, because I'm making this much money, I should now go and buy this car because this car says that I make this much money. Like, why? Like, why accept that, right? But that's one of the things, societal norms is one of the things that's going to get in our way of being courageous, because it's just like the pressure to just conform to what is and not ask questions is very, very real. And for me, I saw this in Christian hip hop. I did Christian hip hop for about 10 years, and I remember starting as a rapper, and I was just trying to find my voice as a rapper, and I felt free. I could write whatever I want. I could do whatever I want. I had no expectations. I was just, whatever was coming to me, I was trying to just pen down and do what it is that I needed to do. And I was getting great feedback as a rapper. People were telling me, hey, Josh, I like what you do. Hey, Josh, you should probably do this or try this or do this or whatever the case may be. But back then, if anyone knows, this is 10 years, 9 years, 8 years ago, probably a little bit longer than that. There was this trend in Christian hip hop where if you weren't putting Bible verses in your raps, some people wouldn't consider you a Christian hip hop artist, right? So before it was cool to say, I'm not a Christian rapper, I'm a rapper that's Christian, right? It was before it was cool that the semantics of all of that. And I remember there was this one time where I was navigating and I was talking to a buddy of mine and he was just like, yeah, man, hey, such and such. I was talking to such and such. They really like this. But he stopped and he asked me, he's just like, yeah, man, like Josh is really nice. And like Josh could really spit. And like, I heard what it is and all that's good. But like, tell me something. Is it Christian though? Like, is it Christian? And he's just like, what do you mean? Yeah, it's Christian. Yeah, nah, but is it Christian though? And I remember when he told me that, what that dude was essentially trying to say is, hey, man, he's good at what he does, but it's not fitting in the box of what we've identified as a thing. It's not fitting in the box of what we as a society has deemed the thing. So does he need to double check that? Is that still okay? And I just remember that zapping some of my confidence away, and I had to like fight and wrestle with that, because it was just like, man, I felt like I was doing what I needed to do. I felt like I was bringing what I needed to bring to the table. But then here he is questioning whether or not it's what I thought I was doing. Like, so that can be very discouraging again, right? But here's what I realized in that. I had to decide for myself, I'm going to have the courage to create what I felt led to create. I had to decide for myself that I was going to have courage to create what I felt that I needed to create. And let me tell you something, it was hard. Woo, it was hard. Let me tell you, I second guessed myself a lot, right? But I knew that I had to practice courage, and I may not have had the verbiage for this back then, but I practiced courage every time I wrote a song and let go of the what others thought it should sound like and just did what I felt like I could do, right? I had to decide that cultural norms would not dictate how I respond to things, right? I had to decide that for myself. Nobody else could decide that for me. That had to be a me decision, right? That was a me decision.